Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 691. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the master of speculation, the duke of the sultan of strategery, the bridge-defying, is never the supporting cast, but always is a feature player, because he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Seguin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be talking about DC TV. We're going to talk about the most recent episodes of Gotham Knights, which is episode 5, Superman and Lois, also episode 5, and The Flash, which is episode 8 of their respective seasons. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have The Flash, issue 800. 40% off, only $2.99, and we also have the 7 variant covers, also at 40% off, with prices ranging from $3.59 to $4.19. And speaking of variant covers, this is the month we have all those swimsuit variant covers that we talked about a little while ago. They're all 40% off, with prices ranging from $2.99 to $3.59. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, we have Batman Detective Comics hardcover volume 4, Riddle Me This. We also have the Top 10 Compendium trade paperback. The Batman Detective Comics hardcover is $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. The Top 10 Compendium trade paperback is $59.99 regularly, 50% off, only $29.99. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support all of us with some great deals. I wanted to shout out a Kickstarter that's currently ongoing, that's got about 10 days left as of when we're recording this. It's Punchline and the Vaude-Villains issue 1 and 2. As far as the story goes, there's no knowledge necessary of the other titles required to read Punchline. This is by Ted Sikora, a creator who's been on our show many times. The fight of the year is here. The Erie Lake earthquake, the Seatown throwdown, the war on the friggin' shore, it's Punchline versus Apama in an epic blast-out brawl for the ages. Drayton Hayes was a down-on-the-luck heavyweight boxer who was kidnapped by the mysterious Vaude-Villains and transformed into a super-powered clown assassin, Punchline. The character was an instant fan favorite after his debut in issue number 1 of Tap Dance Killer in April of 2018. Now Punchline faces his greatest challenge as he takes on the main superhero in the Hero Tomorrow universe, Apama, a humble ice cream truck driver who finds himself bonded with the spirit force of the most savage beast mankind has ever known. Punchline and the Vaude-Villains is a 5-issue series that turns on a dime from horror to comedy and from superheroic to the dark and supernatural. If you haven't had a chance to check out any of Ted's work, I highly recommend it. He's a very talented creator, and the whole creative team really puts together some really awesome comics. If you take a look at the Kickstarter, there's a lot of opportunities for a lot of different pledge support and opportunities to get multiple covers that are really great. I just had a chance to see Ted recently at Fan Expo Cleveland, found out about this Kickstarter. I'm super excited, so I wanted to shout it out on the show. There's links in the show notes to this in the Kickstarter, but again, it's Punchline and the Vaude-Villains. Issue 1 and 2 are available through this Kickstarter. Mr. Seguin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the TV shows we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't watched them, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some DC TV.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
Jim, our first discussion this episode, I want to talk about Gotham Knights. This has been this interesting sort of series, as it's almost been kind of a strange stealth release to a certain extent, because it's a Batman spin-off, a Batman-focused series, a Batman Elseworlds series, and I'm emphasizing Batman Elseworlds because I think some of the lack of understanding to this show is not embracing the fact that this is Elseworlds.
Yes.
First impressions of this series, for me, it's been a surprise because I walked in kind of underwhelmed. I think kind of the build to it has been very low key. So it's unusual for me not to be super excited for something Batman, and I wasn't walking into this. I was like, cool, Batman focused series, a Gotham Knights, cool. It was that kind of thing, but it was very even, very kind of, and also, it's like, cool, I've got a Gotham Knights video game, I've got Batman animated coming, I've got, because we had that Doom That Came to Gotham that just came out. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a lot of Batman related stuff, and I'm getting Gotham Knights. It's always been like this also and thing. The show, 5 episodes in, I'm really enjoying it. My wife is watching it with me, and she digs it. It's a good show. I mean, it's, and am I like sitting here going, oh my, is it the same feeling I got when Arrow first came out? And I was like, oh my gosh, the skies opened up and they're delivering this really cool premise. No, because we've gotten very used to CW style shows, right? But certainly if you like the Arrowverse shows, this is a really good Arrowverse style show. I know it's not like connected to all of that, but I really liked it so far, but that's me. Where were you at on this one? What was your kind of experience with this, and what are your initial impressions?
Well, went into this thinking Gotham 90210. That was my thought, and I think it was Jared who said that, the Facebook group. I think it was him who coined that phrase, or somebody else did. If I didn't come up with that idea, somebody else created it, and I'm stealing it, and I was like, oh, that's wonderful, ha ha. I was 100% in on this. This is so not. This is absolutely outstanding. I love this series. For me, this, like you had I had low expectations going into this. Not even, I had low expectations going into. They completely turned me around on this. I love this series. This Elseworld story being told about Gotham. We've got some brilliant Harvey Dent stories. We've got Harper and Cullen. We've got Stephanie Brown, Duella. I was like, oh my God, this is wonderful. Their handling of the Court of Owls, is absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
Oh my God, I love this story. And it was funny, episode 1, I was, the first episode, I was trying to get it through HBO Max. I was having issues with HBO Max, so I went to the CW streaming, and I was having problems viewing the CW streaming. It was a technical thing, but I got about halfway through the episode, and I kept having all these problems. I'm like, you know what? By halfway through the episode, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do the season pass. So I jumped, and just picked up the season pass on it. Actually, so glad I did, because I'm now just going to, as the episodes, come out, I'll jump on them and keep up on this and watch it right away. Because I watched the first 5 episodes back to back to back. And it was absolutely brilliant. I love this series. It was funny, because you threw out your excitement on Arrow. With me, it was like that excitement I had with Gotham.
Mm-hmm. Great example.
Because for me, I was like, I wasn't expecting it to be like Gotham. I was expecting, as I said, Gotham 90210. I was expecting these, okay, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I had no any expectations on this. Completely flipped the script, completely had me going, no, this is a Gotham story. I love this. Gotham was a character, the corruption, and then you take these character development within 5 issues, I'm 100% locked in on these characters, who these people are. They did a brilliant job following and honoring who these characters are in the original book, but they didn't lock it in and say, we've got to follow this 100%. No, this is Elseworld.
Yeah.
So they're tweaking the story around. It does, and again, has me thinking off page, going, okay, well, who else is in this Elseworld universe? Does this have a Superman? Does this have a Wonder Woman? Does this have a Dick Grayson? Does it have what about the other members of the Bat family? Do they exist? And I love that. The fact that within a couple episodes of this, I was already thinking that.
Yeah.
And I was already thinking, just again, to me, solid story, solid, and they didn't throw away, and it wasn't just about, I love the fact that it's not just about Turner. It's about all of them. All the Knights, all of them are getting their equal time. Their supporting cast is getting equal time to make you want to know, okay, who are the Marshes? What's Brody really like? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? We obviously, from the comic, who Lincoln Marsh is, but are they going to honor that in the in this show? What are they going to do with that?
And do they have to? I mean, it's one of those, and I mean, it's one of those things that's interesting about this is, it's a version of it. It's grounded enough. So, by the way, for anybody listening to this, we're going to talk like organically about elements of all first 5 episodes, just kind of casually, but it's going to be spoiler filled. So please, if you haven't watched the show and you don't want anything ruined, please keep that in mind. Turner Hayes is pretty critical for me in the beginning to get curious about him, because I agree with you. One of the cool parts about him is this isn't just the Turner show, but you've also got to like him, and you've got to, because he is our central focus, especially early on, because of the fact that he's Batman's kid. And the part with him that's really unique and interesting is the fact that he's a fresh character created for this. You know, the idea is Batman's been killed, and he knew nothing. He knew nothing about him being Batman. You know, he was raised into privilege, you know, but had a good relationship with his dad, where his dad was teaching him things. But there's a whole part of his dad's life, this shadow life as Batman, he knew nothing about, and is hurt by it. You know, in the sense that, why wasn't I trusted with this? Why wasn't I groomed for this? And there's these pages that are missing from Batman's journals that Carrie's taken away, Carrie Kelly, because I think she's trying to protect Turner.
Oh, definitely. There's something in there about Turner's backstory in those pages.
Yes.
Because, you know, the one page we did get to see what'll happen when Turner finds out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was Bruce talking about finds out about him being the Bat, or finds out something about Turner's parents?
Right.
You know, that's what I think it is. Something happened to Turner's parents. Either Bruce was unable to protect them, or maybe they were bad guys. I don't know what the story. There's something going on with Turner's past that is, you know, that Carrie, again, is hiding the info from him to basically protect him. And, you know, eventually he's going to find those pages. Eventually he's going to find this out.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's going to be some issues between him and Carrie about that. And I like that I'm anticipating that. I'm already understanding why she would probably do that. You know, so it's that, to me, is solid storytelling, that they're giving us a good background of who these people are. But the one thing that did get me, you know, when I first started watching this, I was kind of hurt that it was a brand new character initially. You know, I was like, man, that would be kind of neat if they had done like Tim, or if they, you know, because I can understand them not doing Dick Grayson, you know, but I'm like, it'd be kind of cool if they would have made it Tim Drake, you know, or again, Damian. But yeah, Damian's a tough one to bring into this universe, so I'm cool that they didn't go with the little monster, you know. But then as the series started going on, I'm like, you know what? I really like that it is this complete fresh character. We had no idea what Turner's backstory is going to be, where this is going to go. So as the pieces unfold, I really enjoyed it. It was something I really digged. And I think if they had made him Tim Drake, I probably initially would have been like, oh, that's cool, they're going with Tim. But I probably would have, you know, been a little turned off by it.
Yep.
Eventually. Because they would have had to tweak it. Because you think about the Tim Drake story, they very easily could take Turner and make him Tim.
Uh-huh.
His parents, you know, died. Bruce takes him over, you know, and all that stuff, and you know, and secretly training him when he's not training him. You know, they could have very easily done that. And I'm now 5 episodes in. I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm glad they went with an original character. You know, and I like the fact that, you know, Harper and Cullen very spot on to what we read. Stephanie, again, spot on, little tweaks. Carrie and Duella, same thing. Spot on to what we've seen, little tweaks for the multi. You know, this is an Elseworld story. This is multiverse. So, yes, we're good with it. I'm good with this. I do want to know one thing that I hope they answer: what happened to Gordon? What happened to Jim Gordon in this universe? They kind of answered what happened to Alfred when Clark, you know, says, you know, your father had Alfred, you have me. You know, so implying that Alfred's no longer with us.
Right.
You know, but what actually happened to Gordon, to Jim Gordon? Did he never come to Gotham? Maybe in this universe, Jim Gordon's a Chicago cop still. He stayed in Chicago, never came over, which means, you know, Barbara never came over. You know, James Jr., who knows? Maybe James Jr. is a rational person, you know, because he never, you know, came to Gotham. It's what happened to those. Those are the stories, the questions that are running through my head. And I wish, you know, and I hope they give us those answers. There's
a lot of legs in this series to go a lot of different places. I'm kind of sad because I'm glad I didn't like check on the ratings before the series, before watching the series, just because of the fact that I got to walk in and just enjoy it and experience it, with a fresh mind. And like you, I walked in thinking, boy, I wish Turner would have been one of the Robins, just because it would have been fun to explore the character. Oh my gosh, as the series went on, I'm like, oh no, it can't be. Yeah. Because having the blank slate with him and being able to fill in the blanks on his story and kind of seeing Gotham through the eyes of a fresh person really helped. We've got enough of the right players between Carey and Harper and Cullen and Stephanie Brown and Harvey Dent and Duella, that you're like, okay, and we got Hamilton Hill, we've got Lincoln March. I mean, we're really pulling from the Batman lore, and there's room to keep adding more to that as the show goes on and progresses. I hope this goes more than one season. I don't think it's going to. And I hope we get, if we don't get more than one season, that we get a complete story here, that we kind of tie this up in a nice, neat bow. Because that's not me being gloom and doom about the series at all. I want this show to have some form of logical progression to it where it's something that I'm going to enjoy rewatching, because I like the characters. I really like the casting. That's pretty key. The writing's been good. The casting's been really strong. These are characters that I'm starting to care about and believe in. Anna Laura, Stephanie Brown. That's, for me, I love Spoiler. It's a character you got to get right. Yeah. Misha Collins as Harvey Dent. Oh my gosh, is he doing a great job? Because I didn't know, with the way that they were playing him so straight, I didn't know they were going to start teasing the potential for Two-Face in this. Yeah. The way that they're doing it and how subtly they're doing it, boy, is that something I was like, oh my gosh, they really are going here. And I was thinking that wasn't going to happen, at least for quite some time. It may have been something that's been happening all along and we didn't know about it. Like, there may be more, there's like, when did these blackouts start? What has Harvey done during that time? Are those blackouts his own, or is it being caused by, because he picks up the phone, he hears music, and something's causing that. Yeah. He's being manipulated.
And we know who. We know who. Come on.
Right.
Who?
Right, exactly. But that's the cool part about this is, it starts off as this simple murder mystery, I mean, as simple as it can get when it's Batman has been murdered. But then seeing the layers of it, it's not just Batman that's been murdered. It's been, generations of Waynes. And then there's been other people throughout the city. And there's a lot of unsolved crimes. And learning more about, like, the lore of the Court of Owls and the Talons. And the fact that, we've got this one Talon who created the knife. And the knife itself is a signature. And that links the court to these previous murders. I love the unfolding detective mystery that is only being solved because you've got all of this misfit gang that is working together in the clock tower of Gotham Academy, which is just a really cool location for this. I've really enjoyed it. I'm glad we get to see some like really cool Batcave sequences, which it's because for obvious reasons, Wayne Manor and the Batcave can't be a central location for all of this because of the fact that they have to be underground. But the times that they've used it have been like really, really stellar. There's something about just this world that they're crafting here that it's Curse of the White Knight. I've referenced that a couple of times on the show, where you've got these Elseworld stories that grab the right amount of the lore that make you feel at home, but also leave you with questions. Like, what, to me, it's just as intriguing to see these elements that I find comfort food in with these new things that they're exploring because they can. And that's where I think the show's really succeeding, is it's got the right balance. Because that's really important to me, that I got those characters that I want to latch onto, that I'm already creatively interested in. I'm a big fan of Riverdale, and if you're listening to this, you're not a fan of Riverdale, and you're not a fan of this, that may be why. It's very much what I like about Riverdale. They grab the right elements of the Archie comics, but they're not afraid to kind of expand and explore in their own way. My wife and I are big fans of that series. This was a fun one because I kept apologizing. I do this quite often. I was watching this and I told my wife, I said, hey, I've got to make sure I'm caught up on this because Jim and I are going to do an episode. We're talking about some of the current DC TV. I said, I want to get caught up on this. She's like, no, I'm enjoying watching this. which that felt really good. It's actually, I will say, that's a commonality of all three shows we're talking about today. We're going to talk about The Flash and Superman and Lois later. She likes all of these shows, which I don't have to pull teeth, where if I'm watching one, she'll sit down and say, no, we'll keep watching this. I'm enjoying the characters and things like that, which is what these shows are supposed to be. They aren't just for us. They're supposed to be for a larger audience. And I think these shows do a nice job of trying to capture both crowds. This one in particular, though, I got to say I was the least interested in initially. I'm glued to it now. Like 5 episodes in, I am very glued to this world.
Oh, big time, man. Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying about how they're doing a great job in making this so non-people, not us, non-comic book people are going to enjoy this as well. Mm-hmm. This is a solid story being told that happens in the Bat universe. It happens in Gotham. And I think that, for me, is the key to why I'm really enjoying this. Throughout all this, I'm right along with them saying, yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, cool. I like that. And your comments on Harvey, I tell you, I love how they created Harvey. Because at first, like you, I was thinking, okay, he's not going to be, this is going to be what if Harvey Dent doesn't become Two-Face? I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. That's kind of interesting. And then in the one episode, one guy's talking, oh, Harvey Dent's Two-Face. I'm like, that's kind of funny. And they show him laying down on the bed and half his face is in a shadow. I'm like, oh, that is kind of cool. And then he's waking up from a blackout at that moment. That was the first time we see the blackouts come in. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what's this? And then they further on when he's talking, when he's talking to Miranda Chase about the blackouts, and she's like, hey, your father had this thing. It's not you. It's not hereditary, and all that. So now they're introducing this possibility of family history into the fact that maybe that's the cause of Harvey Dent. Maybe, acid to the face could very easily turn this guy full-on Two-Face. And I love just that notion and that concept of we may actually get this. That's kind of cool. And the obsession with the coin, which, again, if we do get a Harvey Dent, I don't think it's going to be a two-faced coin. I think it's going to be the court coin. One side destroyed, one side not. And just all these thoughts are starting to flood through my head about Harvey. And then especially when you talk about when he got that call, and it was the music, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's not crazy. Maybe he's not Two-Face. It's just the hypnotic suggestion going on in his brain. Or maybe that's the trigger for it. I don't. So it makes so many different layers of possibility for Harvey that, again, takes a character that I really do enjoy. I really like a good Two-Face story. I love when they really do explore the nature of Two-Face versus Harvey. They're doing that in this TV show. And he's not one of the Knights. He's a supporting cast member, and they're giving so much time to him to make sure we understand him and we appreciate him and we look at him. He's, in my head, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be the Commissioner Gordon. This is going to be the Jim Gordon to Turner's Knights. I'm like, okay. And I was thinking that, I'm like, wait, no, this is not necessarily that. This may be Two-Face. Cool. I love how they're keeping me guessing on this stuff.
Lincoln and Rebecca March are pretty key in this one as far as understanding Lincoln and Rebecca March, understanding that they've got, because of Lincoln's behavior, they've got this strange relationship.
Yep.
And, it sets up why Rebecca would be open to a relationship with Harvey, but that this relationship with Harvey is not one that, at first it seems very much like they had something in the far past.
Yep.
And now it's like this has been an ongoing thing. And how frequent has it been an ongoing thing? This is this double life that Harvey doesn't even seem to be aware of. And I what I'm not clear on right now is this something where Harvey had a past with her, and then there's this big gap? Now, all of a sudden, more recently, he's been experiencing these blackouts? Or have the blackouts been a lot more a part of his life than even he's aware of? I like that that's a question right now.
Yes.
I'm very curious to see, when did this start for him? What has been the trigger? Who is driving it? Did they drive something that was happening before? Did they create it? And all of that is fascinating to me right now. But I love that she's kind of like done with, like, okay, I'm getting kind of tired of, you're like passionately coming after me, and then it's all like talk to the hand and regret and all that kind of thing, and we can't do this anymore. Make your doggone mind up, Harvey. And he's kind of like sitting there going, honey, I don't even know how I wound up here.
Yes.
It's so cool because it's to your point, the main support cast. I mean, that's something we're going to really delve into next, but the main cast is not even what we're focusing on in the moment in this conversation. And it's such a fascinating part of the show is that triangle. And that's where I think the show's succeeding for me, is there's always something going on. Like every scene transitions into somebody else that I'm curious about what's going on with them. And that's good development. Being able to find that balance. That balance is pretty critical of, while they're building in this one story, there's another story that's unfolding over here. And there's, if I'm like not quite feeling where they're at yet with a certain portion, there's something every episode that's made me go, oh, that's interesting. Where's that going?
There's no throwaway moments.
No.
And I love that about this. And especially no throwaway moments with people who I was assuming were just going to be supporting characters.
Yep.
Because the Marshes, we know who Lincoln Marsh is, and looks like they're honoring that in the show. So that's awesome. His son, Rhodey, when they first introduced him, he was a little flirtatious with Stephanie and all that. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to maybe do some love triangle, Turner, Stephanie, and Brody. No, there's more to that kid as well. Mm-hmm. And to the point where I'm like, what does he know? How much, how little does he know? I'm assuming he doesn't know his parents' connection to the court. I'm assuming they haven't told him yet. But eventually it will be expected for him to join the court and become part of it and all that. Or is he already part of it? I don't know. That's the big question. If you see him step up and take the fall for Stephanie, knowing his money, his family position would keep him out of harm's way, which it did. Or did he step up because the court said, hey, step up, do this, find out where that way you'll get her trust, and you can find out where they're hiding. What level, what is his level in all this? Is he just a kid who likes a girl, or who has two horrible parents, or is he a court? I don't know. And I love the fact that I don't know with him. And I love that about this character, that we've got this, who I initially threw away as a throwaway character who is just fooling around with Stephanie. Now he's a main player. Yeah. Is he going to become a knight? Is he going to become an owl? Is he going to become a spy into the court of owls, which would get him killed? What's going to happen to this kid? I love the fact that again, within 5 episodes, I'm already thinking off page for him.
Harper and Cullen Rowe and Stephanie Brown. What's interesting is, Harper and Stephanie Brown are like oil and water initially, but it's because the two are so similar, which is really interesting. Yes, different upbringings and things like that, but there are certainly things in a different world. The two of them would be best friends, right? And would have grown up and been raised best friends because they've got so much in common. Cullen being the connecting point is very interesting because we, through Cullen and his interactions with Stephanie, start to see, Stephanie was raised in a situation where mom, alcoholic, on drugs, things like that. And Stephanie's worried for her, embarrassed by her, all the things that go along with being in that situation and trying to be a lot more mature and having to be a lot more mature than she should have been at certain ages in her life, clearly trying to be more of a parent in those sequences than a child should have to be. And I know now we're talking about her at Gotham Academy in her teenage years and all that, but this is something that Stephanie's clearly done her whole life. Cullen connects with all that because of what happened with his dad and the fact that they're, on their own and having to fend for themselves and things like that have to do with their upbringing. I found the story of Harper and Cullen captivating because you see what Harper's had to do, where Harper's had to go. And I think it's kind of why she's jealous or resentful of Stephanie, in that she can see herself being Stephanie, but Stephanie's hasn't had it as hard as she has. Like, I want to be Stephanie. I could be that person. I've got everything she's got as far as in capabilities, but she had all that because she didn't have to go through what I did. And we got to see, what Harper's had to do to survive on the streets, and that and to try and really protect her brother. She became kind of the protector of her brother, and he's starting to appreciate what she's done, the sacrifices she's made, how she's compromised herself and put the care of him ahead of even what's best for her in some of her choices, questionable or not. And I like that complication of, I get these characters. They're hard-edged. Yeah. I can't understand what it's like to live like they do, but I'm fascinated by getting to know these characters and drawn in by them. That's something that's incredibly captivating on the show.
Big time. And again, it's funny when the Oscars roll around and they start looking at best actor, best supporting actor, and all that. The way I always look at with this best supporting actors, if in the movie, if that best supporting actor was one of the main draws on the movie, those are the ones who I think should win. Yeah. There have been a lot of times when I was looking at the Oscar listing, I'm like, why are they putting them as supporting? They were the main character.
Sure.
No, they weren't the main character. So-and-so was. They were just such a powerful character that I thought they were.
Yep.
These three characters are the same kind of roles for me. Each one of them, at different points in time, I was like, they're a main character. Now, Duella and Carrie, I absolutely love, but to me, they are solid supporting cast. These three, Harper, Cullen, and Stephanie, at any point in time, I could say they're the main character. At any point in time, if they were to say, hey, we got to get rid of Turner Hayes, they could continue on the show, continue on the Gotham Knights. I think that's one of the things I love about these characters. Now, again, I'm not knocking Carrie and I'm not knocking Duella. I need to have them part of the Knights. I need to have Turner as well. I love having all of them in there. But for me, those three have such a standout role in the development of the show, in my latching on to the show, that I put those three higher than the others.
And I'm going to disagree with you. And the reason being, I'm going to, first of all, say ditto to everything you're saying about the three that you're referencing, because I think they're everything that you're saying they are. So yes, ditto. Here's where we may differ on this. I think what's really important is you need those three to be what they are in order to have the mystery that is Duella and Carrie. And what's fun about Duella and Carrie is they're not as out in the open. Carrie, because of the fact that she's thrust into this situation with Turner and Harper and Cullen and Stephanie and Duella because of the fact that she happens to be associated with Batman. She was Batman's Robin. She feels a certain amount of responsibility to Turner in particular because of the relationship with Dad. She also has to be protective of, she's right now, she is the inheritor of Batman's legacy. She's the only surviving member of that partnership. For whatever reason, there's elements of that she has to keep secret from Turner. She's giving him only so much as Batman's son, but there's pieces where she's trying to honor Batman in that. So remains a mystery. She also has this life, this dual life, that she's trying to keep separate from all of this. Whereas the rest of them, Stephanie, you can argue, has it too, but the rest of them don't have that. They're all, right now, this is their status quo. Carrie's got to keep Carrie Kelly going. Stephanie has to do it too. She's just better at, sort of better at navigating it because everyone knows she's involved with them. I mean, it's kind of like the worst kept secret. Duella, I am finding positively fascinating because I feel like at one point in time I start to understand her and the chaos that is Duella takes over. But I think there's a layered character there that is gradually being developed. She acts like she doesn't care, but then she does care, but then, she does the typical Joker thing. There's so much story to be told there with Duella. I feel like every time they give us another nugget of Duella, I'm more captivated by her, but I think she has to be what role that she is, and you can't have her be that character if you don't have Harper, Cullen, and Stephanie. Right. You need to have them there in order for her to be the character that she is. So she's to me, she's an important main player in the same ways that the others are, but she does not work unless you have the other three because, boy, would it be a boring show if we knew nothing about anybody. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the balance, I think, of what I'm finding here. And where I'm saying I'm agreeing with you is you are highlighting the fact that these actors have been delivering stellar performances as Harper, Cullen, and Stephanie, and you are so spot on. I think, though, where the only area where I'm disagreeing with you maybe is the fact that I feel like Carrie and Duella are essential because that mystery surrounding both in different ways. Carrie more of, I want to know more about what her working relationship with Bruce was like, what secrets she's keeping. I want to know about the pages. I want to know more about what it's been like trying to live the dual life. Those are all pieces that are captivating to me. And when this is all going to come crashing down on her, because it's starting to. The teachers are talking to Mom. Mom's starting to ask questions. Mom being busy is the only thing keeping her going right now. But that tunnel is closing around her right now. Duella's this own little chaotic piece, but I love that she's not the Joker. I feel like there is something more to Duella. There's a humanity to Duella that is intriguing. I can't wait to see more development of her because every nugget that they give me is making me want to see more, making me want to know more. I feel like she cares about this crew, even though she protests. Yet there is that chaos that is her too, and the selfishness that is her, that has to do with her own experiences, that is just complicated and fascinating. And they're characters that in order for this team to be what it is, you need them. They're essential.
And I agree completely with you. They are essential for the team. Mm-hmm. But with me, when I look at those two characters, I'm like, I need them with somebody. Like Carrie and Turner, great story. Carrie and Duella, great story. Duella and Turner, Duella and Harper, Duella and Stephanie, just all the characters interacting. Those two, I 100% need them offsetting somebody to really dive into the character. Now, everything you're saying, I agree with you. Duella is wonderful and amazing. And the stuff with Carrie, we've got future episodes coming up where it'll be a Carrie focused. And I'm looking forward to those Carrie focused episodes because everything you said with her dealing with her mom, what happens when the mystery starts unfolding and the mom starts asking questions. They've got some really cool future stuff coming up with Carrie, and same thing with Duella. Like some of the best moments had some of those laugh out loud moments that I had were 100% Duella. It was that chaos, the Joker, where like when they're trying to get her to do something, it's like you can't shame me into anything. Well, you get the punch a lot of mutants. Should have led with that one. And that that little funny moments, and just like when they're raiding the Wayne Tower, and she's like, "Hey, you guys, we got to go help them," and they all jump out of the car, and I'm like, she is so stealing that car, and sure enough, she hopped in and said, "Hey, bye," but before leaving, she did give them one more chance to join her, and I think that for me was a neat little thing with Duella, showing again growth of character. She gave Harper and Cullen a chance to join her before driving off, but she 100% was leaving, and she should have left, and I 100% saw that scene coming, still cheered when it happened because it so fit her, but it was a really neat Duella moment. So so if I came across and I'm not fans of them, I'm 100% fans of them, and yes, they are crucial to the Knights. I put the other three at a position higher just because I think Carrie and Duella need that interaction with somebody else.
They all do. Let me explain that one to you. And this may be where we disagree, and that's okay. It's okay to have disagreement. Let me pull Stephanie, for example. My love for Stephanie is not for Stephanie alone. It's because of Stephanie's interactions with her mom. It's Stephanie's interactions with Harvey. Stephanie's interactions with Turner. The interactions with Harper. Cullen. She's one of those characters. Brody. My gosh, the whole Brody sequence. And how Brody, to the point of the Brody-Turner kind of triangle kind of thing, she's trying to navigate that murky waters of these are guys that were friends, but also clearly both, she's clearly got a thing for Turner, but Brody's also got a thing for her, and those pieces that are going on. She's a character who there's the connecting threads. I think it's what the show's doing well is I think all of the characters have this spider web of connecting threads. And some of them are more in your face, whereas the other ones need to be mystery based in a way that I think is making balance for the show. So I get what you're saying as far as the performances, the way that because of the fact that these characters are more out in the open, you get to know Stephanie more, Cullen more, and Harper more. I think we're 100% in agreement. Those actors are shining because of the fact that we get to see them more in that spotlight. Whereas I think where the actors who are playing Carrie and Duella are equally brilliant is the mystery that they're helping unfold in the way that they handle their interactions. They can't be the same characters as those other three, and I think if they do, we've got a very boring show. What's intriguing about this show is knowing how to cast these characters and to write them in such a way that they're developing something different. Because even the three that you're referencing, Stephanie, Cullen, and Harper, they are the farthest thing from the same. That's one of the things that's intriguing about them, too, is their individual interactions with each other peel away the layer of the onion, so to speak. Yeah. This show is just, I think the writing is, it's something that's getting a little lost in the shuffle, and it's really strange right now in an era where we've got everything everywhere all at once. We've got these great Spider-Man movies that are going into the multiverse, both live action and animated. We've got Marvel embracing the multiverse. That the home of the multiverse, DC, this show for some reason is, I'm seeing it get, like, it's not doing super well. Like, what show are you watching? Because this is totally a surprise for me in the sense that I was walking in. I will say I feel like promotion-wise, this show has suffered. Because I feel like, boy, has this been under the radar as the kind of show that it is. Because nothing in the ads prepared me for what this show is. And I feel like that's a mistake. Because I was going to watch it anyway because I'm a Batman fan. You should not be targeting me with this show. You should be targeting that larger audience that are people that the Marvel movies and the Marvel universe and all that, the TV universe and movie universe and all that, the MCU, is not... Comic fans are a small portion of that audience. There is a larger group that is watching that have never picked up a comic before or are so casual with comics they wouldn't consider themselves comic fans. This show should be targeting that crowd. The CW traditionally have. I haven't seen, maybe I'm wrong on this, I have not seen the kind of advertising around this catering to the right audience for this. Because it's strange to say it isn't us, but it shouldn't be us. I mean, like, we should be the ones that, like, we got them. You know, they're going to watch it because it's DC related. So we shouldn't be the target. It should be that larger crowd. I feel like they're making a mistake in how they marketed this. And you may disagree with me, but that would be my critique is I think it's a really good show that is missing how it should be targeting its audience.
Yeah, I actually agree with you 100% on that. Because, to be honest, I didn't see a lot of advertisements outside of where we would see it.
Right.
I didn't see it. They didn't go across the board. They didn't do a big, hype train on this. They kept it very quiet and subdued, which is not a good thing to do for a new TV show. And again, even just the fact that they were taking the Bat mythos but changing it around, they needed to let people see more of this. They needed to get it out there so that the non-comic book fan would say, okay, this isn't just a comic book TV show. The way advertisement was before this, it looked to me solely like this was going to be, they were going after the Arrowverse family. That's all they were going after. That crew, that the people who follow the Flash and follow the Arrow and all that, that's what they were going for. And to be honest, this is a good TV show that takes place in Gotham. Yeah, there's some supernatural stuff and some freaky deaky science going on when you've got your talents, but even it was neat how you and I both knew what was going to happen with that talent. And when they started doing the reveal, like, we knew the truth, who that talent actually was. We're like, oh, this is cool. And then they show it, for the non-comic book people to go, whoa, wow. Yeah. 100% loved how they did that. So, they're doing a brilliant job with keeping it, yes, for us, but also making sure not us will enjoy this as well. Give me, this is a good way to do a superhero story, in that it's not, yes, it is a superhero story, but it's not just about the superheroes. It is about the people. It is about their personal stuff. We're getting character growth in 5 episodes. We've had some serious character growth in all of the characters, the Knights as well as supporting cast. Some have more development than others, but they're still developing who these supporting people are. And it's, they're doing a brilliant job with that. So it's like, I'm very, very happy with this. Looking forward to the next one. As I said, I've got the season pass on this one, so I'll get my notification when the new episode's ready, and I'll jump on it and I'll watch it.
Here's where it's succeeding. When you and I can debate each other as far as the pieces that we're getting attached to, and we care about them. There's nothing wrong with watching a show and latching onto different things. We're going to have different experiences. We're different people. And half the time, even when we both enjoy a comic book the same, very rarely are you and I 100% on the same things that we were latching onto, because of the fact that our experience is just going to be different. This show is a great example of that, where, we both liked it, but our interest in certain things are just, what's the spotlight, what's the highest spotlight for us, are slightly different. And in certain key areas, as far as which characters we're latching onto and why. The whys, I think, is a different reason. It's not that you were, and I want to be clear, you're not like trashing characters. You're like, hey, these characters just stood out for me a little bit more. Yeah. Whereas for me, the mystery of 2 other characters made them, for me, just as much of a focal point. That doesn't mean you're wrong and I'm right. It just means that our experiences were different. And people listening to this, may be some hybrid of the 2 of us, may have their own little reasons, or may have disliked this for certain reasons. It's an interesting show when you can talk about those elements and pieces. It's sad when I see something like this that has so much potential, because you referenced earlier places to go, characters you want to see. Like, I truthfully haven't even been thinking about Jim Gordon with regards to this show. Second you were bringing it up, I was like, well, yeah, sure, I'd love to know what happened to him. Well, is there room to see him later? Because they've taken elements of Dark Knight Returns and put it in this. Court of Owls put it in this. There's a lot of story that they're pulling from this arc, and that arc. I think the way that they've used Dark Knight Returns and made it more contemporary and is something that's interesting. Like, paralleling what was happening in Dark Knight Returns with the mutants with the Court of Owls is an interesting strategy and storytelling, and a pairing I would have never put together, but boy, it sure works in this world.
Yeah. And again, it's one of the things about this that I absolutely love. Again, the acting is absolutely brilliant. 100%. Kudos to all of them. There was no point in time when I'm watching this guy. Sometimes when you watch a show, you're like, come on, that seems forced. Come on. No. Everything felt so natural and portrayal of it. I think that for me is something I love when I'm not taken out of watching a movie or a TV show because it seems like they're pushing something in or they're forcing something in. They're letting these characters naturally grow, develop, and their story unfolding. A story has to have a beginning, middle, and end. And they're giving these characters that beginning, middle, and end as it continues on. So at the end is the end, but it's still the development. The end ends up being the new beginning. So as they take these characters, as they're revealing stuff, as they're showing us stuff, it has that where it's allowing progression, but it also has a definitive moment. Like, we talked earlier about the Colin and Stephanie and the Stephanie and Harper, connection with, the abusive family and, with the drugs and the alcohol. A lot of times when a TV or movie show, puts that element into a story, it seems kind of like, oh, we got to throw this in. This is the bad guy. Let's make him a drunk. Let's make him an addict. Let's do it. No, they're giving us this natural progression. We've got the Harper and Colin's father, who's a bit of a jerk, and Stephanie's mom, who you can kind of feel bad for the mom as an addict, where she's doing some stupid stuff. She's making wrong choices. Part of it is because of the addiction. Part of it is because there's got to be even more going on in the backstory, and you see how Stephanie has to deal with it versus how Harper and Cullen had to deal with it. It's that same element of their life. And again, it is a mirroring of Harper and Stephanie's life, how they each have this horrific thing going on with their family, but each one, it's a different level of horror. And how they have to deal with it is different than how the other had to. And again, it's that, societal positioning. And I love how they're giving each of them the power and the time that the story needs. And at no point in time while I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, okay, another addict story. No, they did it great where they really brought it in, and you're thinking Harper, you're thinking Stephanie, what they're going through. And you start thinking off page, and, in the back of your mind, you're hoping Harper's dad met a very horrific end and he died screaming. Whereas, like with Stephanie, you're like, I hope, maybe the mom can get some help and things can work out nicely. And, you start looking at who these characters are and how they're playing, how their character, that of the parent, formed these characters. I love how they did that. And again, acting is brilliant, and also the writing. I love the story. One last thing we want to just quickly talk about, and who knows how quickly with us, with the court. Mm-hmm. We both love how they're handling the court, but I do wonder, Endgame, how far can they take the court in this story? Obviously, you're thinking Turner's eventually going to have to clear his name, Harper, Cullen, and Duella's name on the death of Batman, of Bruce Wayne. But can they take down the court? Or, because the court is so vast, is it one of those things where you can never take down the court, but you can win the individual battle? And that's what I wonder, because we've got at least 11 episodes this season. Mm-hmm. So we're about halfway point. Can they clear their name in 6 episodes? Can they get to a point when, season 2 could happen with them not on the run, but as firmly set as the Gotham Knights, the new guardians of Gotham City? That's the thing I wonder with something, because I love the court, love how they're doing it, love how they've been revealing them one piece at a time, cheering every single time. But I do wonder, can this be an endgame in one season? Are we looking at the end of season 1, they're still on the run?
Does it have to be? I guess what I'm looking at there. So here's the problem. I want, if they're not going for a season 2 of this, I would love some form of satisfying ending for this. Because that one thing I hate was getting invested in something like this and not getting that. That's very hard for the creative on this, because obviously their hope would be that this would continue on beyond that. And they should hope for that, because there's a lot here that I want to see more of. So I want that too. To me, I guess what I'm looking at is there's a story that they're planning to tell here. I think you're bringing up an excellent point. The court is such a rich thing to delve into. I don't know how you get an end game to that in 11 episodes, nor should you. In the sense that, oh my gosh, there's so much to delve in there. And truthfully, an end game for what 11 episodes looks like versus an end game for the court, I think, are two different things. I think you can have a story where you're left with the dangling thread of, and the court's still active and things like that, but some form of conclusion of an arc, if that makes sense. There's a lot to do in 11 episodes for this show. We're 5 in, and we're talking about 6 more episodes. And what you and I both enjoy about the show, we've both got certain things that are really important to us. Some of them are overlapped, and some of them, we've got more of a passion for. One's got more of a passion for than the other in different directions. That's okay. There's a lot going on here. And I only feel like there's scratching the surface of things that you can delve into. Because I feel like the Lincoln March arc is, in and of itself, just getting started. Yeah. And that's a whole other thing that can be wrapped up, whether or not he was behind one of those masks, which I have my own thoughts on. I'm sure we're pretty much got the same thoughts on.
I think so.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of intrigue to go there. I feel it's sad to talk about a show in this capacity where it was such a surprise, because I did walk in expecting to be like, it was a good show. You know, I'm glad that they did it. I'm a Batman fan and all that. I didn't expect to walk in and be really, as it's progressed, get to the point by episode 5, I'm like, oh, no, I don't want this to just be 11 episodes. I want more.
Yes.
I'm hoping for some reason that it gets... I don't know what kind of numbers the CW needs in order for them to feel that the show is beneficial. I know there's a difference, too, between licensed content and original content as far as for... I know that they were trying to move away from licensed content because of the fact that there's an overhead to that as well. I'm just hoping that this show has enough of an audience that they would consider extending it. And we get a larger, story being told here, because I'll be happy to see what happens with the 11 episodes that we've got. It's a very interesting show. This was a surprise, totally a surprise.
Yeah, big time.
Can we talk a little Superman and Lois?
Oh God, yes,
yeah.
Yes, please.
So we're 3 seasons into Superman and Lois, and the episode that we're going to be talking about and focusing on in particular is episode 5, which is a very personal Superman and Lois piece, but there's a lot of elements going on with the school dance and further relationships for Natasha. This season has a new Jonathan Kent, which we can talk about. We get to see some elements of Jordan, what's going on, further development of Lana's family. We get what's going on with Bruno Mannheim, which is a whole other piece. It's got all of the elements of what I really like, and honestly, I'm ignoring Sam Lane and John Henry Irons, but all of the elements of what I like about the world of Superman are here. Can we start first, strangely, with the recast of Jonathan Kent?
Yes.
Just because of the fact that you and I were both fans of the actor who played him before. And I think it's worth talking about the fact that the character's been recast. This is hard to do, and I like it so far. Which is hard. I think it's a hard thing to take over for somebody else when I really liked the actor who was playing him before, and to come in and make me believe you are the same character is a little bit of a challenge. Where are you at with that?
You know what? I really liked the prior John Kent, and this guy's good. I like him. Mm-hmm. It was interesting, like episode 1 of season 3, when you first see him standing there, and when Clark rebuilds the Fortress of Solitude, and he shows him, for all my family, and you see him standing there, that did go, yeah, okay, and then you start seeing him interact as the season's going on. He and Alec Garfin, who plays Jordan, have a great brotherly relationship. I love those throughout this season, the banter and just the interaction between those two. Again, that was something I really liked about the previous actor, and so I think they did a good job with the recasting. I think he's doing a good job making the character his, to the point where he's not the same guy, but it's not like a glaring, jarring difference of who they are. When you do a recasting like this, it can be difficult. And I think they're all handling it well. And I'm cool with him. Yeah, I'm happy with the direction his character's going, happy with his performance. So I'm good to go on this one.
Yeah, that's something that was really interesting for me. It's because I get passionately attached to acting talent when they're on shows and things like that. I think they did a really good job. I think one of the things that's nice about Michael is when I looked at him in the sequences in this episode in particular where he was standing next to Jordan, his Jonathan Kent, they look like they're brothers. Like so it's really good casting. And that's not to say the previous actor, I loved him too. So it wasn't like that. I felt like, okay, if you're going to recast, you got to get somebody where there's got to feel like this person belongs. They did a good job with the casting visually, and I cared about the relationship. We got to see with him, he has an opportunity to now be a part of the fire and to be, working on the weekends and perhaps pursuing a career goal for his future. In order to do that, though, he has to make some tough decisions about his personal relationship where girlfriend's moving away and she's moving somewhere far, long distance. You know, at that age, when you aren't established and you've got to make a use of, I'm going to school, but I have to also make use of, I've got a job and I've got my weekends, that struggle's real, where it's, do you give up your dream? Do you put the relationship ahead? Or do you realize that, hey, we're going to have to try to make this work and see if we can make it work in spite of the whole struggle? I really loved the deep emotional honesty of him and his girlfriend having this talk about, you know, we care about each other. How do you give up your dream and your future? Let's see what we can do about trying to make this work. Knowing that they're going to have a struggle ahead of them and they may or may not make it, it felt very real world. And Superman at its best is when it goes real world and you have, yes, these fantastical superhero things going on. You, in spite of that, you're able to have them deal with day to day. I care about what's going on at the Kent farm. I care about what's going on in the surrounding world around them. And on top of that, they're dealing with Bruno Mannheim and they're dealing with villains that can vibrate through walls and go toe to toe. Yeah, Deadline was great, going toe to toe with Superman. And you have that in there as well, where you're just like, oh man, that was a really cool battle between the two of them. I find that I like Clark Kent and his family. I'm focused on Clark Kent and his family just as much as I'm focused on Superman moments. And they aren't independent of each other. They're integrated to each other. And it's a struggle to find balance between both. That part is really being captured well in the writing of this season. And that's a hard piece to do. And I love this show is really high on my list.
Yeah, for me, with, you know, again, yeah, I'm echoing everything you're saying and even taking it even a little bit further.
Sure.
Because for me, with a Gotham story, you know, a Batman story, Gotham has to be part of the story.
Yeah.
A Superman story, I've got to sit there and want to be friends with Superman. I've got to have that feeling of, yeah, this is somebody I would call my friend. This is somebody I'd take a bullet for. Just because of how cool and nice, and it's not even just because he's Superman, it's just how great he is as Clark Kent. And they've done such a brilliant job with that, with him. And with Lois Lane, whenever there's a Lois Lane, you have to be able to sit there and say, why would this man with godlike powers be in love with her? We see that over and over and over again. Especially this third season, we are solidly seeing stuff in Lois Lane that you're like, yes, this is why this man loves her so much. And I love how they're doing that. And then we've got, again, as I said earlier, Jonathan and Jordan, they've got to have that interaction that brothers have. You've got your interaction with brother. I've got my interaction with my brothers and my sister. And it's just, you know, there is that relationship that siblings have. And that's the hardest thing for me when I see a TV show, to actually see that kind of brotherly relationship or sibling relationship. Because if the actors don't have that groove, you can see it very clearly. And same thing kind of like with on-screen romances. You've got to see that spark. You got to see that, okay, you know, to the point where you question, do the actors actually care about each other?
Yeah.
And those are the kind of those really great moments. So, you know, our moments between Lois and Clark, you see that, you know, connection. The moments between them and their children, you see that. It's absolutely brilliant on that. I love how they're playing off, how they're letting, again, writing, acting, combination of both. They're really giving it, you know, it feels real. We have a guy who can fly, who's an alien from another planet, who has superhuman powers, and I'm saying 100% this is a realistic story. We've got a guy who built an iron suit, you know, who's from an alternate Earth, and I 100% believe he's real. You know, there's so much supernatural, superhuman stuff going on in the story, but it never takes away from who these people really are. And then you throw in some really solid, cool, non-meta-human, non-superpowered people who are interacting with the human sides of them. You've got you have a brilliant story being told. So again, this is another one of those things where I was like, this is awesome. I love how this is playing out.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really a successful. And this episode was very personal with Lois Lane and what she's going through with her cancer battle that we've had. Because Bruno Mannheim is running a facility that is using experimental methods to try and help cancer patients. So she's looking to get her cancer treatments there to try and get the inside scoop on more on what's going on. Bruno, did I say Bruno Mannheim? Or did I say? Okay. Part of me thought I said Morgan Edge, so I apologize. I've got a lot of Superman villains, especially from this show, running through my head. But Bruno Mannheim's got that facility. And one of the cool things about this is Lois being Lois, trying to embrace what she can control when she's dealing with something she can't. Cancer is, and I'm speaking to cancer from the standpoint of both my parents went through lengthy cancer battles. I'm speaking to it from the standpoint of I understand what Clark's going through in the sense that you watched, this, and I watched my stepdad going through this. You tried to support and help, but there's also a helplessness that you feel in wanting to solve that problem. Lois is that person who's going through it, that is doing what so many heroic people that go through cancer battles that are trying to do. Control the things that they can in their life. Keep life moving forward. Be productive. Be yourself still. Not sacrifice and compromise yourself. And Lois is trying to still be, and successfully, trying to still be Lois Lane. She's going after Bruno Mannheim. And she knows there's something there. She knows there's the ability to take him down. There's something hidden behind the scenes. This was a way for her to infiltrate while at the same time getting her cancer treatment, which is allowing her to control the pathway of how she fights the cancer, which is such I think, very true and realistic to how so many people, everyone fights their cancer battle in a certain way, but those that are really looking to target it, try to control things in that way. And I felt like, wow, they dealt with some real human moments where we see Lois be at her highest and we see Lois be at her lowest, because she has certain situations she has to admit, I'm tired. I wanted to go to the dance tonight, not making it. And and basically having that moments with Clark where she's like, you see that as a couple, they're going through a struggle with this, where he's trying to be honest with her, and sometimes that honesty is not what she wants or needs to hear. Or, I'm sorry, it's what she needs to hear, but not what she wants to hear. And there's two very big differences between that, because you have to fight the good fight, but you know that, your wife's not receiving it at that time. I loved when Clark was in the facility and talking to the two ladies that had been going through the cancer battle longer, and they were getting real with him about what it was like for them. And even though both of their stories sort of paralleled, there were differences between the two.
Yeah.
And I liked that reality, because that experience of going through, having two parents that went through it, my dad's experience was very different than my mom's. The writing on that and capturing the fact that, yes, they're both going through severe cancer battles, but their story's different, and that Clark could get something from each one of them in the advice they were trying to give him, also showed their strength, because from an empowering standpoint, they got a chance to be a support to him and, recognize you're the spouse, you're going through some things too. Like, how are you? And it's okay to talk about that. It's okay to open up about that. And maybe we can help you understand what your wife's going through a little bit more than even she could. And I liked that whole sequence. It's a very real sequence in a Superman show, which that's the best of comics, right? When comics go to those places where you're like, dude, they had this whole issue where they focused on this topic, had a great superhero, supervillain battle in there, which fits in there. It wasn't just like tossed in for no reason. There's an ongoing story that this applies with, but you've got that element to it. Throw on top of that you've got Sam Lane that needs, feels like he's weighing in on this. Like, you're letting her go underground and do this? Like, what about focusing more and prioritizing more the best path to her battle? I loved just everybody weighs in that sequence and what it goes on. It just felt very normal, very real world. It made me feel like I was hanging with these people. I was I was a friend, like going through their struggle with them. And that to me is really good writing, where you start in that moment, you're getting so captivated in the show, you forget you're watching a show and you think you're hanging out with friends. Yeah. And that's something that I think this show has captured really well. And that's great casting, because if Tyler and Elizabeth aren't Clark and Lois, it doesn't work.
Yes, 100% agree with you. And that the sequence, again, I loved how Lois Lane, being Lois Lane, she's going to use her chemo to try to sneak in and do research.
Yep. And
try to find the story. That is such a Lois Lane thing to do that I was like, yes, they have to do this. This is absolutely perfect. And then we've got that great Clark sequence, not Superman, but Clark Kent, when he's dealing with the two chemo patients. And I loved how his interaction with them, because again, this is why I want to be friends with Clark Kent. This is why, I want to help him do whatever he needs. I got your back, man. Because you see just what a wonderful human being he is. His interaction and his dealing with the two patients, and his with because that interaction, I will 100% admit, tore me up, and that hit me, and I was just like, man, that was a tough one, and and again, just they're again brilliant acting on it and brilliant writing on it. Just how they're talking about the process, they're talking about what they're doing, what he's got to deal with, what your family. It's not just the patient dealing with this on all of it, and I love just the portrayal of that. And it was funny with what she's called younger chemo patient, and I was like trying, and I'm like, I'd seen her before, I couldn't place it, so I went IMDb, and she was a reoccurring character on the TV show Bosch that I really liked, and I was like, oh, that's where she was. Okay, and again, solid acting on a one episode part. I love the fact that these two scenes could have really been a throwaway scene just to kind of show Clark as a good guy, kind of do a little bit more towards helping the story and what Clark's going through. No, they really did an impact, and the sequencing they did, they had brilliant with the layout where you've got Lois being Lois and you have Clark being Clark. And I loved how they interwove those two, and then you add on to it, you've got your villain, Bruno Mannheim, who is absolutely brilliant. I love this actor, Chad L. Coleman, is absolutely brilliant actor. And again, when you've got this villain who is 100% a villain, he's the bad guy of this story, but he doesn't see himself as the bad guy. He's not trying to conquer the world. He is just trying to protect his people. He's trying to protect his neighborhood. And when you have that kind of villain, you gotta, it's brilliant, because you need to have that where in the weird part of your brain, you're backing him. But then you don't know, but look at these horrific things he's doing. We can't agree with this guy. He's wrong. But then you're back your mind like, what if he and Superman started working together? And and it's that same Lex Luthor argument I always run through my head, where what if he realizes he's doing wrong and goes, hey, I can do some right with all that I have, and starts doing, stops doing the bad stuff. Could they possibly end up working out and being friends and actually really working together? No, but it runs through my brain, and it always runs through my brain with a really good portrayal of Lex Luthor. This guy is doing a really good portrayal of Bruno Mannheim, in that I've never in the comic really thought about Bruno Mannheim in that way. I always thought of him as intergang. I always thought of him as just a mob boss, or a high-tech mob boss, and just organized crime piece of garbage. This Bruno is showing us there's another side to him. And I love the fact that they're doing that with the story and how they're tying it into with Lois and with her cancer fight. And just on one hand, you're like, he's doing a lot of good here. But on the other hand, he's a killer. He's a monster. He needs to be put away. But, there's so many different things, so many different elements that they're playing on this. They did a brilliant job of doing enough of the emotional, enough of the Lois Lane investigative reporter, enough of the Clark being this amazing guy that he is, and let's add the villain, and let's do that. This right here was a brilliant juggling act of emotions that I was riding just this massive roller coaster through this issue, through this episode. And again, the strength of it has been the lead up to this point. You know, this is one of those things where if you just jump in and watch this episode, yeah, it's powerful. But if you see all the episodes before this, you see the build up to it, you really get a, whoa, this is awesome kind of moment.
Chad L. Coleman plays Bruno Mannheim, and he's really doing a great job because you need those layers are the best parts of my favorite Superman villains are where, you know, it's not all blah evil bad guy. Yes. It's when you sit there and go, you could be so much more. You could be such a force for good. And sometimes it's life circumstances made this person who they are. And you get it. And you're like, sometimes people hit this point where there's this line that's crossed where they're beyond wanting redemption, if that makes sense. They feel the ends justify the means, and in the end, if they accomplish their goals, it's made it all worth it. However they have to accomplish those goals because they no longer have confidence that doing it the right way will work. There's so many layers to that. Or they found so much success in going to the dark side that it's where I loved that part of this because it felt very, very much what I like about my favorite Superman villains. I would be remiss if I didn't comment on, so it's Taylor Buck plays Natalie Irons, and we've got Dylan Walsh as General Sam Lane. Their scenes together in this episode were really great. And it was kind of what we were talking about in Gotham Knights, what I'm enjoying about that show. It's the fact that you've got, you know, what's going on with Superman and Lois over here. You've got what's going on with Jonathan and his girlfriend over here. And you've got Natalie, who is trying to navigate a situation where she hasn't had much relationship experience. You know, that's scaring her, where, you know, we're hitting this point where I've got feelings for this person. The person's coming on. I don't want to say, sometimes when you say strong, you say it in a way where it's a negative. But you've got somebody who's showing interest into her, and I love that he shows up there and he's like, well, you got to dance tonight? He's like, I don't know. I really like you, and you're worth getting a suit for. Yes. Those are some great sequences. And you can see where, you know, she would be, you know, swooning over that. I mean, that's something romantically, whether you're male or female, having that other person who's willing to take those steps for you is something where you sit there and go, okay, I get why you would be, you know, all in on this piece. And I like how she, at one point in time, he goes to kiss her. She has a reaction to it where she's like, you know, this is too soon. It's too fast. You know, I'm not ready, you know, and it's more fear, you know, from her end. And she goes to talk to Sam, and, you know, she's basically ashamed because of the fact that she doesn't have this experience. And that's why she reacted the way that she did. And Sam relates it, though, to the fact, goes, you gotta understand, my wife left me a long time ago. I'm so out of the game that I couldn't connect with it right now if I wanted to. And gives her some real sage advice and connects with her from a very different angle, but connects with her. And that scene doesn't mean anything if you don't see the two of them interacting on the farm, and the fact that they've built a relationship of, you know, friendship and trust and mentorship, where he's getting to be the kind of dad that he couldn't be for his kids, or grandfather, or whatever you want to, you know, he's playing that kind of role in this, where he's getting to do some things that he didn't get to do for Lucy. He didn't get to do for Lois to the way that he maybe would have wanted to, or in his heart was capable of it. Now he's trying to take on that role on the farm with the kids that are there in a different way. And it's cool to see him have that kind of layer, because we know that Sam's going to be Sam at some point in time in this. We're going to want to smack him upside the head again, because Sam Lane has this tendency to, you know, to do Sam Lane things. But the smack that you want to give him upside the head means a heck of a lot more when you have these moments where you're like, I like Sam Lane. I believe in Sam Lane in these moments. And Natalie being the one that has the interactions with him, especially, I love that story, John's and Natalie's story, and how it's interacting with this world, I think is something that has been really well done in these seasons. And having Sam be integrated into this portion of it, I thought was really cool. The dance, when you have an event like a dance and it impacts multiple characters, it impacted Natalie, it impacted Jonathan and his girlfriend, it impacted the Cushing family, Kyle, stepping out and being able to, kind of move forward his relationship a little bit in the light of what happened with him and Lana. Such a cool sequence. I really liked how they took advantage of that this episode and moved forward so many stories that are supporting stories to the much larger story of Superman and Lois. And it's a lot of what I think these shows have continued to do well.
One of the things I loved about the Natalie and Sam Lane just relationship has been throughout the season, where you see him building the relationship, and it starts off at first going to that movie, and he completely pitches the DOD schooling, and she's like, you don't want to get to know me, you're just doing this to try to get me to go to the school. And he's like, I messed up, sorry, I apologize. And he's working at it, and you see him actually working to develop that relationship, to develop that friendship. Yep. And I loved how that, and again, you get that, everything you said about him giving that sage advice, it was so awesome. But I especially love the ending of it, because she gives him a hug and says, thank you, Grandpa, calls him Grandpa. Mm-hmm. And I loved that moment, because even Sam was like, yeah, and it was to him, even to him, he was like, yeah, this is my granddaughter now, 100%, this is his family. And I love just that moment. Again, the multiple episodes, multiple times leading up to that really did give us that, that thing. And I loved how protective he is. When Mateo first shows up at the farm, he's just looking out the window. Do I need to take this guy down? And he's thinking, going through his brain, okay, what do we got? Threaten, going through the threat, assessment, going through all the possible people who could do her harm, but also do the extended family harm. But also, this was I must protect Natalie. This wasn't just about protecting the farm, protecting the secret, protecting the Kents. This was also about protecting his granddaughter. And I loved how he played that out, and even loved how Mateo's like, he's starting to freak me out here. What's going on here? Kind of deal. And part of me, I really, really, really hope I am wrong with what I'm about to say. I hope to God I am completely wrong, but I've got a bad vibe about Mateo. And my bad vibe is that his last name is Mannheim. His uncle is Bruno Mannheim. And I'm worried that we're going to get a future episode when they see him with Bruno, and she's like, who's that? Oh, that's my Uncle Bruno. And when my mom died, he took me in and he raised me. Yeah. And I don't want to believe that he's a bad guy using this to get to Natalie. I want to believe the story, but I got this horrific feeling in my gut that something is not going to be right with Mateo, whether he's a Mannheim good guy, or, because I don't think he's a plant. I really don't think he's a plant, but I am so worried, that they're going to end up making him, just somebody associated with Bruno Mannheim. Well, I'm worried about that. I'm terrified about that.
Well, it's a complication, if that's the case. Yeah. And complications are always things that you have to address and deal with. So we'll have to see who Mateo, what his backstory is and what that looks like as we go further. The Cushing, Lana, Lana Lang winning the election, having to deal with Junior and the after effects of that. And she's trying to be Lana, in the sense of be supportive of Junior, knowing what this kid's going through with what happened with her father. She's been on a crusade of the truth's got to come out and everything that he did, but making the decision that healing is more important. There was that great sequence with Sarah, her daughter, and Junior, where she's trying to be that friend again to this person who the friendship kind of split away, and they have that moment where she takes a swig of the drink in honor of his father. And, it's this whole sequence. She's like, that tastes like garbage. It's not like she was heavily drinking or anything like that, but it was really situational where it's like, he was out there connecting with his dad. She was trying to show support in that. Of course, that's when Mom walks in. And that's Murphy's Law, right? I mean, and it's a very real experience. We've all been there before where there's something where, listen, this looks far worse than it is. And my story was there was a time where I went and took my girlfriend home. While I was gone from the house, one of my friends went up to my father's room to be alone with his girlfriend. So again, I wasn't even there for this. Another one of my friends is on top of my garage dancing with a stuffed lobster. Or not stuffed, I mean a blow-up lobster that we had for the swimming pool in the back. So he's dancing on the garage with this. So this doesn't look good, right? So he's causing a whole ruckus up there. I had 3 other people who were there. Now, there isn't a drop of alcohol in sight. I want to be real clear on this. But this kind of stuff's going on. My dad comes home while I'm gone. I come home, and I've got 3 of my friends out on the street who aren't the ones I've just indicated, who are running up to my car going, hey, your dad just came home and you're in trouble. And I said, what do you mean? I didn't even do anything. So while I'm gone, these things were going on. I guess when my dad came home, he was banging on his bedroom door, not knowing, for obvious reasons, not knowing who was in there. And the person on the other side started swearing at him because of the fact that he thought it was one of the other guys messing with him. So the situation escalated, and it's one of those where truly it was an innocent situation. I literally just took my girlfriend home. I come back home to a circumstantial mess. This is an example of where she was sitting there. Was she heavily drinking during that time or anything like that? No, she took a sip with this guy to honor his dad, but when Mom walks in and sees you with a flask, and that flask obviously had to reek. She's now situationally in trouble when really he was drinking. And not that I'm condoning, drinking at that age or anything like that, but you could understand where he was at, with everything that had gone on with his father. And she was doing the right thing, trying to be a good friend and give him another outlet besides the flask that he was holding for him. She was extending the olive branch. Sarah was doing a good thing. I thought it was really great writing where it showed, because life fills you with that. We go on and on about stories where circumstantial things have happened. And I loved that, it felt so real in that moment where I could connect to, in my life, different circumstantial things that have happened where it's like, now I'm in trouble or I've been scolded for something where I'm like, I didn't really do anything here, but but those things happen. I liked Lana's handling of that afterwards. Lana actually listened to her daughter, heard the situation, came back with the appropriate thing. Okay, listen, you did the right thing, but next time, no drinking. And I liked how it was such a mom response. The actress Emmanuel, and it's Chriqui, who plays Lana, she's really good casting because she's human. She's flawed, but she's very, very likable and seems to be very, very kind. I really, really like which is what you expect from Lana Lang, right? Yes. I really like the casting of this particular character.
And one thing that we do need to clarify, I am neither of the 2 friends you mentioned. Okay? So the 2 friends you just mentioned...
Well, I would have said your name if you were there.
Right. No, we need to make sure everyone realizes I was neither of those 2.
Yes. Yeah? I was not protecting you.
I'm very familiar with that story.
Yeah.
That's why you heard me laughing, because I remember it.
Yeah. Well, one of my other friends showed up, came over, because all I was doing was a cookout. I had some friends over for a cookout. My mistake was leaving the children unsupervised. And that's where, quite frankly, I was wrong and deserved to be scolded. It's because I left the children unsupervised. When I left, I figured I mistakenly thought everything would stay the way it was when I was gone. It did not.
Yeah. I believe that was the first and only time anyone has ever heard your father angry.
Yeah.
It was. I think he actually even referred to himself as Mr. Whalen.
Yep.
Normally, your dad would use his first name. And
correct.
that time he was Mr. Whalen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and one of my friends
the first time anyone had heard him angry.
One of my friends who was not you, who was over all the time, was very reluctant to come over for a long time because of the embarrassment of the situation. Which it was a funny example of circumstance, though. Something wound up looking like something it was not because of how it was handled.
Yes.
But it was funny. It's this show. Is there anything else about this show that you want to discuss? Because I don't want to leave anything out.
Oh no, I want to talk Kyle and Chrissy.
Okay, yeah.
The relationship going on between Kyle and Chrissy, I absolutely love that.
I do too.
100%. Again, two characters. Because Kyle, he's one of those characters that he is such a solid role in the supporting side for all the different story developments that we've seen with Lana, with Sarah. That he is such a crucial part of it. I'm so glad that he is still 100% solid in the story. Then you get Chrissy, who, to me, I thought was just going to be an also-ran character, just thrown in. But now they're starting to let her flesh out. They're starting to let her bring out, just her character. They brought her into The Secret. She knows the secret of, Superman. She knows the secret. So she's a trusted confidant in this. Now, when Lois is sick, she's continuing on the investigation. She's continuing on Lois Lane's work. So this is somebody Lois trusts to continue on going after her white whale, going after Mannheim. So I'm like, this is something that I love the fact. Then you take these two characters and you're putting them together. What initially appeared was just going to be this was a mistake, one night stand, is slowly turning into an actual solid relationship.
Yeah.
They're giving these two characters time, so it's not just an also, we got this going on. It'll become a set thing. And I love seeing that. And again, it's giving each of these characters a little bit more to do than what they did. And it's, when Kyle was first introduced, he was really introduced as the jerk of this story. He was the person you were supposed to boo when he went on stage. He was the heel. He's doing a face turn showing, he made some mistakes. He did some stupid stuff, but in his heart and soul, he's a good guy.
Yep.
And I love that, how we're getting to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's something that this show also benefits from the fact that it's got a great cast. And we're clearly heading towards the end of what was the Arrowverse. I mean, it's not really the Arrowverse anymore. These shows are independent of each other. I hope that Superman and Lois has a lot more stories to tell. So I'm hoping that this show's doing well and continues to go on. The fact that it's kind of its own separate lane now from the other shows, I think is good for the show in the sense that the CW can look at this as a show that it can continue on independently. And with it being 3 seasons in right now, I'm hoping we get at least another couple seasons of this because I really am enjoying the show, the cast, the characters, and it needs the room to continue breathing and growing. There's something to be said about these shows that are... We're hitting into this era where streaming shows are becoming more and more popular, and I get why. They're tight, compressed stories, and you don't get a lot of the filler episodes and things like that. But I like these shows with a much more extended chance to breathe. They feel a lot more like comic books in the sense that every so often you get a deep personal episode like this where, yes, it's advancing the overarching story, but it also, you get to know these characters and get to live with them a little bit, if that makes sense. And it's something that you can't get in the streaming shows that are a little bit shorter to the same level because they have to do episodes like this in order to get a full season out of it. And I think it's a clever use of the medium. When you've got 22 episode seasons, 20 episode seasons, whatever, it's a different kind of storytelling that you have to put in place. And we, as the viewer, benefit from having a lot of options, in the sense that I don't want every show to be this long. I also don't want every show to be 8 episodes to 12 episodes. I like the extended storytelling. Gotham Knights is a great example. We just talked about that. It's like, how are they going to do everything they're supposed to do in 11 episodes? I hope it gets more than that because there's a lot of story to be told there. This is an example of a show that's benefited from that lot of storytelling. I think it's the reason why you care so much about Chrissy and Kyle. And I think that's just been due to the fact that you can afford to flesh out more characters when you do things like this. And it's cool. Can we talk about The Flash, Season 9?
Yes.
So with The Flash, we're on episode 8 of season 9, just to be kind of clear where we're at. And it's the episode title is Stuck in the Past, Racing to the Future. This is kind of a fun one. It wasn't deliberate. There's a certain contained element to this episode that is interesting to talk about. But being consistently one of the great comic book television series out there to be in 9 seasons. And this is it. This is the wrap for this particular show. And it's been around since, 2014, I think? This show's been around?
Yeah, 2014.
And which is a long time for a show to be around and to be delivering like this. This is an example of it's gone through some casting changes in the sense that some characters have left, other characters have come back. Some characters, like the character of Caitlin Snow, or Danielle Panabaker's characters of, what was Caitlin Snow, have undergone significant changes and evolution throughout the years. I really like the fact that we're getting to the point where Iris is pregnant now. Am I the only one that thinks it might not be Nora?
Let's just jump right there. I'm thinking it's not going to be Nora.
Yeah.
I'm 100% thinking this is not going to be Nora.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the big twist. Like, wait, it's not Nora?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a boy. You
yeah.
know? And I 100% think it's going to be complete change, because that was something that was going through my head. And the way I am right now, just full disclosure with everybody on The Flash, I'm still behind on it, but I jumped and watched episode 8 because I knew we were going to heavy focus on that. I'm still working my way through season 9, so it was interesting that some of this stuff was kind of like, I didn't know that's going on, because I still hadn't seen the part where, Iris announces, hey, I'm pregnant, So I was like, oh, she's pregnant. Oh, that is cool, So the opening episode with Barry painting putting the finishing touches on the crib, and she's going through all the pregnancy stuff. I'm like, oh, that is cool. And then throughout the whole thing, they're talking about Nora. The first thought that popped in my head is, are they going to swerve us? Are we going to get a Bart instead of a Nora? I don't know what they're doing or how they're going to do it, but I'm actually very excited.
Well, Bart's his grandson.
Right.
Although it doesn't have to be, to your point, in this particular storyline. So
the birth, how funny would that be? When they do the birth scene, they're like, Nora, well, it's a boy. What do you mean a boy? It's supposed to be a girl. And it's a boy. What do we do now? It's not Nora. So looking forward to that. But also, I loved how, again, those two, Grant Gustin and Candice Patton, have a great on-screen relationship.
Yep.
In that there is such a solid comfort. I 100% believe these two legitimately like each other. They're legitimate friends. I can see them hanging out, with their various significant others, and the four of them hanging out having fun. And just that kind of, I see that connection between them. And I love when you see that kind of, that comfort, and maybe it's because of we got 9 seasons under the belt. Maybe it's because they legitimately like each other as people. I don't know what it is, but you see that connection. I love that. And it comes across so solid on some of the simple stuff with them interacting. Iris was introduced as, the supporting damsel in distress character, and quickly flipped that script, said, I ain't a victim here. She, again, like how we talk about why does Superman love Lois Lane so much? Why does Barry love Iris so much? It's not just because she's beautiful, because she is, but there is that strength of who she is. There is that strength of character. She is his lightning rod. She is that thing that holds him in place and keeps him flying true north. And I love just that connection that they have. And anytime you see them with the problem solving and it's interaction, it's 100% full disclosure, team Flash between the two of them. And I love that. And even like when they start bringing in any other members of the team, that's something that this show has done really well, is the concept of Team Flash. whenever it's Flash and interacting with other people, he's letting the team work. And in this episode, we had him dealing with brand new people, and he had to reveal the secret and then, deal with that later on. And actually deal with, the Team Flash and had these other people that he was trusting to get opinions on and go with that. He recognizes, hey, I don't know everything. We got to work together to solve this. If we're going to come out of this alive, we have to work together. And I love the fact that we get that from Flash on throughout this episode especially, but also just a general statement of the Flash is that he does that.
One of the things that I thought was fascinating on this episode is you got this inspection that's going on in a facility that is hiding a lot of secrets and has been through a lot. And he thought it was going to be like a singleton person. Oh, that's no biggie. I'll take care of that. And you've got a team that's there, and they're all experts, and they want to get, like, every little thing they want to get to the root of. They do their job, and they do it well. And I loved when the timey-wimey stuff started happening. Yes. I'm like, okay, we were just in this room. And when they went back in the second time, there was the grandfather clock. Then they went back again in the room. They went to try and go back out and wound up back in the room again. And the room was different yet again. And their clothes were different. And
yes.
It was really cool to see how time was changing and unfolding around them. And it was all due to one of them that was there being the thief from the Flash Museum, Lady Kronos. And I loved the use of Lady Kronos as a villain in this. I loved how, we're trying to hold on to this thing that we've stolen, but in doing so, like Barry went ahead of the future. Like that was his answer to this was to jump through time, right? To find out what had happened. Well, in doing that, he actually made the situation worse, which, as with a number of Barry's experiments, Barry's very smart, and Barry has done so many great things, and a lot of them have been due to positive experimenting. So you get why he would keep doing it, because sometimes it just calls for taking that risk, right? And going into that danger. But at times he's made those choices, and they've been catastrophically flawed.
Well, I'll tell you, I laughed when that was his solution, because I'm just yelling at the TV going, no, Barry, don't do it.
Right.
Do it. It's not going to end well, and sure enough, it didn't work well. And again, I don't knock Barry for trying that because okay, I can see why he's doing and what he's doing and whatnot. But just it's one of those things like whenever there's a Flash story about Flash going back in the past to save his mother. All the comic book people go, no, don't do it. The non-comic book people go, oh, wow, I wonder what would happen. We know what's going to happen. It's not going to be good. And, same thing with this one, with him doing the time jump, trying to jump to the future, trying to figure this out, trying to do that. I'm like, oh, no. And sure enough, it reaction. And I loved how this played out, though, because we don't know initially who the big bad is. We didn't know Lady Kronos, but they did give us enough clues that she was my prime suspect throughout this. Throughout all this, because even when they showed her, actually at the beginning of the episode, trying to steal it, they hid her body frame enough that it wasn't obviously a female. That's something I give them kudos on. But again, just her interaction, not knowing what a breaker box was, not knowing the term breaker box, like, huh? That caught my attention immediately. Then when they're talking, someone's a time thief, I'm like, oh, it's her. She was my prime suspect.
And I loved that part of this, right? It was the fact that you're trying to figure out who the person was. You're enjoying that kind of pull into the mystery. We're riding along with Barry, which, I've been diarrhea of the mouth with this over the years on the show. That's my favorite thing to do is when you're sitting there with your heroes and you feel like you're hanging there with them. We were very much Barry and Iris. We were there with them. And we were like trying to analyze the situation with them versus being on the outside watching what was happening with them. I like when they have situations like this where I felt like I was trapped in the room with them. If I'm making sense on the vibe that I was getting from this. That, to me, is always good writing when you can take these episodes that are contained. Because your watching experience for this was something that is... You have to keep in mind that there are people that still watch network TV this way. Where it's... I flip on the channel, this show happens to be on, and I haven't watched the other episodes. Nowadays, we have the luxury of there's a lot of methods to get caught up, right? And go back and rewatch the show. But this could be anybody's first episode. And this episode, if you don't know everything that's going on, you can still follow along. You can start to get caught up and start to realize the relationships of the characters, the troubles and tribulations they're currently experiencing. We have supporting casts that are going through relationship issues during this that, are for the first time revealing love for each other and not knowing quite how to deal with that. And that's that reality, too, of anytime you tell somebody that you love them, that's a risk, right? Because is that person ready for the relationship to go to that level? There's a difference between dating somebody and really enjoying each other's company and then taking that next step of, hey, I love you. And there's an implication there that this relationship's going to the next stage. And if the other person isn't there with you, that can be a very vulnerable moment on both sides, where it can crush the person who said it. It can put walls up for the person who didn't. And that particular sequence of events I thought was so well written, because now you're sitting there, where is this going to go with these two? Yeah. And on top of the fact that they've got to work together, and she has powers, and they're both Team Flash, and what does that mean if they start having those issues? And I loved that we've got then Joe's wife, who is walking in on this situation, realizing that, hey, I've walked in on a problem. I'm going to have to, and it's Cecile. Cecile walked in and she's like, I walked in on this. I can't just let this go. I've got to kind of help Allegra and Chester get through this, but I also don't want to overstep. And they're playing like games together, and she's trying to like wrap up, and she's like, well, let's do a best out of 3. Let's keep this going so that way Chester and I don't have to deal with this. And Chester left. Chester's like, I've just got to go. At this point. And that's where Allegra really opens up and says, not only in relationships, but in her life, those that she's gotten close to have died, or had horrible things happen to them. So it's not that she doesn't love him. She's afraid to admit that and embrace that, because what if she loses him? What if he's not there anymore? And I loved that honesty, right? That it's, when it really means something to people that you exchange those words, the reactions are going to be very different, because what it means to that person and what life experiences have been involved in that would affect them. I really loved the writing of that, because we've got this deep story going on with Barry and Iris on one side, and you've got this whole other thing that's going on in the same episode that is foundationally laying out, whether you've watched all the episodes or not, what is going on with significant cast members to the show, that you can walk away from this episode and go forward kind of knowing the score. That's really cool.
Oh, big time. And here's the thing, the strength of that sequence written, I really have no idea who Allegra or Chester are. Mm-hmm. I think I was around for her. I watched her introduction, and I maybe saw his, but I don't know who these characters are. And the comfort of just how well that scene was written, I was 100% pulled into it. I could tell immediately, because I've been on the receiving end of the where you say it too soon. You drop the L-bomb way too soon, and you're like, oh no, I've been on that end. I've done that, and I've had it where it's been the other side when you do it at the exact right time. So 100% felt really cool, and I was right along with my guy going, no, dude, oh, man, I feel bad. And then you see then when she's talking to Cecile and explaining what's going on, you're like, oh, cool. So I was right along with them throughout this. Even though I have no idea who they are or what their deal is, I was completely captivated in this story, just as much as I was captivated in the Flash story. So, again, kudos on how well they crafted this, in that someone who knew no backstory, didn't know any of this stuff, could completely connect with them and go along with it. So I was very happy with how that went. And again, it's one of those things where it's, every time I watch The Flash, I want to get caught up. Every time I watch an episode, I want to see what's happening. I want to get completely caught up on, watch this full season and, keep up to it and watch through the ending, and I think the strength of a single episode that gets you going, yes, I got to get back to this. Lapsed for multiple reasons. None of it was ever about quality. I've always thought The Flash was a really good story. I really enjoyed it, but life just got in the way. Now I'm at the point where, I've got to make room for this. I got to figure out a way that I could set aside, 45 minutes out of my day to watch an episode. And I got to start watching at least every week or every day or however I want to do it, where I watch at least one episode of The Flash and get caught up, so that way I can, experience the finale.
Yeah, it's such a cool show for what it's doing, and the fact that it's been around so long. I think it's important, though, for a show like this, when you're 9 seasons in, to be able to be a jump back on show for people. So to your point, you're jumping back on with this episode. Yeah. And you have to be able to feel at home, but then realize, to your point, there's some characters that are there that you weren't exposed to. Or if you were just barely introduced to them, and you haven't had that experience. This episode did a really good job of kind of laying out the groundwork, which you can speak to more than I can as far as what that was like for you. But I felt like it was a nice primer, because I was really enjoying kind of catching up on this season and re-enjoying what was going on.
Oh, it 100% was a great episode to just sit down and watch. And again, all this stuff going on with Killer Frost or Keanu, or I don't even know how to pronounce her name now. Yeah. How she's a completely different character than what we knew. And I'm like, what? Because who is this? And I'm like, that looks like Frost. That looks like Caitlin. What's going on here? So it's one of those things I want to get caught up on, and I want to find out who she is, because that's a great actress. I've loved her throughout her multiple variations that she's gone through in this series. She's one of those actresses who got a really good chance to have some fun with it. Because I remember when Caitlin and Frost started becoming their own people, their own identity. And it wasn't just the evil version. It was a completely different person who had a right to have her own life. Frost had her own right to have her own life. It wasn't who's Caitlin Snow to take away from Frost. And I love when they first introduced that concept. And then I don't know what happened to that character to create this one, and I want to find that out.
And that's the interesting part, is when you take a look at something like this, because what it's bringing up to speed is that we've got this now additional personality, and the others are gone. The mother of Caitlin wanted to meet with her. That was the interesting part, was, we've got this relation of Caitlin's who wants to sit down and talk to her, and she's like, well, I'm not her. I don't know her. I want to meet her, but also don't want her to think I'm going to be this person that she thought I was. I'm not her daughter. I don't want her to think I am her daughter. I thought that was a really cool conundrum that she was in, where there is an interest. I do want to do this, but it's hard. That would be very hard to interact with people that way. And she's yet another person who isn't going to be there for one mold inspector. Yes. When the mold inspector walked in too, you saw those doors open. He was saying that one mold inspector thing way too much too.
Yes. Oh yeah. Completely where they came through. But again, I like how the fact that this is a nuclear facility that hasn't been inspected, that it should be inspected. So the one request for mold would trigger all those other inspections.
Yep.
That is, again, when you've got some weird supernatural show that has elements of reality to it, I like that. And again, you kind of saw that coming, but I still got the pop from me when it came through with the multiple inspectors, and then turns out one of the inspector was the big bad. I'm like, oh, this is nice.
My excitement for this show in particular is the fact that they are able to wrap up this show. Meaning, we're going to get this season 9 is that they know it's the finale. They're going to be writing it up as a finale. This show's going to have an ending. This show deserves an ending. When you've had 9 seasons like this show's had, this is a show I'm going to rewatch. It's going to be a show like I'm currently binge watching Smallville, which is actually part of the reason why I've gotten behind not on just on DC shows, but some of my favorite sci-fi shows and stuff like that has been binge watching some favorites, some old favorites. I've just been enjoying doing that. And, so then I've been coming back and now binge watching episodes to get caught up for this conversation. It's fun doing that. This is a show that is very worthy of, I love the characters. I love the casting. They mean a lot to me. And this will be a show that, like, very similar to how I'm binge watching Smallville now, I'll go back and binge watch Flash. Because it really is like comfort food, and actually watches really well watching 2 or 3 of them together at a time. Because there's the ongoing storyline, but there's also getting to know the relationships, the interpersonal relationships of the characters, getting to know how they're interacting with the world, how they're impacted by choices Barry's made. Sometimes Barry's done things for the right reasons, but they've had a negative impact on those around him who've had to be understanding of significant. Caitlin is, poster child of being in Barry's world has completely changed Caitlin. This is no longer Caitlin Snow. And that's because of her, really, that kicked off initially because of her relationships with Barry Allen.
Go even the very beginning of this, episode 1.
Right.
Season 1. Her fiance dies.
Yes.
That's the opening of Caitlin Snow into the Flash universe. Your fiance dies, and then he's not really dead. He's Firestorm, and then he dies again. And just everything she's been through. Throughout the existence of this to now this current entity that she is. It is kind of neat to see where these characters go.
Yeah.
And I think they've done a brilliant job with that on the Flash.
I agree. Where it is just this it feels a lot like a comic book. And what's nice about this is like a comic book, and you really can speak to this a lot more than I can, the ability to be able to jump back in at any point in time, although I can speak to it too. There's times where I've stepped away. I kind of do it like I do a comic book where I got to read multiple episodes. Watch multiple episodes, I should say, because I want to catch them all. It's like Pokemon. Yep. But I think the flexibility is being able to do what you did on this one, because we talked about this before recording, and I thought it would be great for the show. I said, basically what I told you was, if you're not able to get caught up with everything, just watch the most recent, and that would be a fun way to talk about this anyway, because can you jump back on? What does that look like?
Again, with this one, I 100% jumped back on, followed it, enjoyed it, cheered for the good guys, booed the bad guys, really enjoyed myself. And again, just like any good comic book, if you read a good one, it makes you go, I got to now read everything else. I picked up the season for this so I can go back and, watch I'm going to watch all of this 3rd season, get completely caught up and stay caught up through the ending. And then I'm going to go back and watch, the stuff I missed. Because there's a lot of gaps I have in my Flash watching. Superman I'm all caught up on, and with Gotham Knights I'm all caught up on. But there are massive gaps in my Flash watching, and part of me would like to just go episode 1, season 1, and just go through. Part of me wants to say, just fill in the gaps, Jim. And I don't know how I'm going to handle it yet. I'm definitely going to fill in the gaps of the final season. Definitely going to, watch all of this season and keep up with it to the ending. I don't know what I'm going to do with my back watching. Whether I'm going to go back from issue 1, episode 1, season 1, and just go from beginning to end, or what I'm going to do yet. I'm still debating on that.
I want to be there for the ending of this in real time.
Yes, me too.
So I'm kind of the boat, whatever I've got to do to stay caught up enough so I can be there for the ending of this. I just want to celebrate the ending of this, and just know that if there's episodes that I'm missing in my watching, I'm going to go back and watch them and just kind of get caught up. I want to be there for the ending, because I think we need to talk about it on this show when the ending
we're definitely
hits,
going to talk about it.
and celebrate how this show wraps up. It's funny, I was mistakenly connecting the story that I did to another episode on this, because when I'm looking at the inspector, talking about how he hates shenanigans.
Yeah.
I came home in my story to shenanigans. And it felt like a labyrinth. So I think maybe it was more like this episode. Because my buddy Chris had just come over, and he was kind of like my Iris in this, where the two of us were talking to my dad, because he took one for the team and was sitting there with me as I was trying to navigate the murky waters. And my dad sure felt like the inspector in this. It was great how they were dealing with that, because they're trying artfully to dodge the secret, and did it as long as they could till they got to a point where, all right, now it's gotten so crazy that unless I explain to him what's going on, we're not going to get anywhere. And they recognize the talents of the people in the room, that they could help solve the mystery, but also that one of them could also be the catalyst. And the only way to move forward is to reveal what the situation is so that they can get to the bottom of it. Yeah. I thought the choice was good, because they didn't just jump to, hey, I'm Flash. Hey, look at me. Because I would have had issues with that. I liked that the story got to the point where if we don't reveal it now, we're going to be trapped here. And this is the only way to really root out what is actually happening here. It made sense, because I'm not a big fan of over-revealing. In this case, it made sense. And I like that at the end, because of the way the timey-wimey stuff works, because that was returned to its point of origin, and that it basically, quote-unquote, didn't happen. Time reverted, and they don't know who the Flash is. That kind of neat little bow tie up. Sometimes that's overused. It worked in this episode, because I do think that's sometimes overused, where it's kind of a paintbrush kind of. Yeah. Well, now they just don't know the secret, because a lot of people know the secret of the Flash, and you've got to keep that circle as small as possible. Otherwise, everybody really is going to know who Barry Allen is.
To your point, I agree with how they played it out, how they did it. And the whole time I knew, because we were dealing with the timey-wimey thing,
yep,
they weren't going to know. So it was one of those things where I knew what was coming at the end, but I was okay with it, because it 100% makes sense. It keeps the story going. And I liked how they did this. I liked how this played out. And again, they're trying to know how we're going to do it. And finally, it's like, again, how do you reveal you're the Flash? You run around the room at superhuman speed. I'm the Flash, guys. Oh, okay. And everyone's reaction, I love the one guy's reaction. Oh, okay. Somebody passes out. The other guy's like, oh, this is cool. And keeps calling Iris Mrs. Flash. I loved how they great reaction. And again, the whole time in my head, I'm thinking, this is a timey-wimey thing.
Yep.
It's going to flash back to before the reveal, so they're not actually going to know who's who. So, yes.
The neat part about that was there was also the clues, which I admit I didn't catch them, that Lady Kronos was Lady Kronos, that she didn't know certain things about electrical systems and things like that. But I love that they took us back through and explained how Team Flash knew.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great that Barry and Iris kind of caught on because of the slip-ups. And that was cool. It was very, very well done. I'm not going to try to pretend that I caught that as it was happening organically, because I didn't. But that was a really interesting way to go about this. I love when there is that second run through of it, and you can go, okay, the clues were there, and that's neat when they do that. Yeah, it's a neat little show.
Again, I had fun watching this episode. It's re-energized me. I want to watch The Flash. I got to get caught up on this season, and I want to see the ending in real time like you do.
Yeah. We'll definitely do it on the show.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
How you doing, Sean and Jim? Just want to see how you guys was doing and talk about the state of DC TV and the movies. I don't know what everybody was talking about, how horrible this Gotham Knights show is. I watched it, and I'm finding it to be pretty fascinating. Too bad it's only going to get one season, but the show is pretty solid. I don't know what the outrage was. I heard people on certain podcasts, they said they would never watch this drivel, but I think the show is solid. Is it the best? Probably not, but it is a good, solid show with a good foundation, and we'll have a beginning, middle, and end. Sometimes that's all you need, and that's all we can get. I'm really sad about the Shazam movie. That movie was a great movie, and it's a shame that we will probably never see him on screen again or get to finish off what he started. And it's all because of this so-called DC make horrible movie syndrome that's going on. And I'm just going to say it. This is true. Every time I'm around somebody, they say DC, people kind of like, it's horrible. I'm hearing wrestling podcasts reviewing DC movies, and they're giving it the thumbs down, and they don't even watch this stuff. So it's something going on in the air. And Jim said this months ago. He is right. It is just some bad aura about DC movies. Even when they get something right, it's something wrong. But on that note, the Blue Beetle movie should move the needle for the Latino community. So if these people want to see their self represented, they got to come out and represent this movie in the theater and show them where the dollars is at, because we need you guys to come out, because this movie looks pretty good. I don't usually watch trailers. I saw the trailer for Blue Beetle. I was blown away. That's going to be a 2-night movie watch. It's a real story about families, not really a lot of superheroism in it. It seems like it's going to be a family-based movie with those type of obstacles you really never seen before, probably in Spider-Man movies, but not so much in DC movies. Usually it's some big type of villain. This is going to be a more down-to-earth movie, and I think this is what the industry needed. And I'm glad the movie was upgraded from HBO Max to a theatrical release. That shows you they got confidence in this. Now, if somebody can get them to show the product they don't want to show, like the Batgirl, I think we need to see these movies. I know they got a tax write-off, and I don't think it's legally able to be done, but man, I would like to see what it was and see what we would be missing, because she looked wonderful as Batgirl, and I would like to see how that come out. The Doom Patrol comic book that came out last week was a pretty good read. It's following the Nazareth storyline, which is good, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying Power Girl's new power set. I hope that stays like that, because she kind of probably need to be different than the other house of the L's, because she's actually from a different place. She don't have to have all the same power. So I'm hoping they keep this mental thing going for a while, and hope it becomes part of her power set for the long run, because she's a character that needs to be around in the DC universe at all times. She never should have a break. She should always be able to see monthly. You guys have a great day. Keep on making these great podcasts, and I'll keep on listening, and you guys have a great day.
So there's a lot there to unpack, which are some interesting things. The Gotham Knights piece, I didn't know that it was officially confirmed as one season. If that's the case, I'm hoping there is exactly what he's talking about, the ability to give it a good beginning, middle, and ending. Obviously, even if it's truncated, I prefer, if they know it's going to wrap up, to honor us as fans and give us, a nice conclusion to that type of thing. The reason why I think that's important is you take time. There's an economics of time that I've referenced on the show many times. If I'm going to take a risk of jumping on a show, I want at least the satisfaction of, give me a story, let me wrap up. And, at the end, if for whatever reason the show doesn't continue on afterwards, you give me that, I'll jump on your next thing. I will try your next thing. You burn me too many times, I am going to become less interested. And I'm going to say psychologically, I'm wondering if that was part of my fear for this series, was the fact that I didn't feel like there was a lot of promotion behind it. Because it's unusual for me not to be excited going into a Batman-related show. Like, I'm your easy grab, right? And I wasn't for this one. I'm pleasantly surprised at how much I really am enjoying this series, but I didn't walk in. I walked in expecting to be like, that's going to be a good Batman show. I walked in figuring I was going to be kind of okay, middle of the road with it, and not expecting how much I would be really hooked into this one and enjoying it. That's a sign in my lack of confidence, not necessarily in the show, the writing, or the cast, but in the backing behind it, which is really, I feel, where my concern was. I don't know if you were in that place too, but that's kind of, it's funny, as he was making his comments, that's what I was connecting with.
Yeah, oh yeah, I agree. It's again, as we said before, they did a guerrilla campaign, if anything else, if you want to, underground, a silent, advertisement, or however you want to word it. It wasn't a full court press, and I think it needed that.
Yeah.
And part of it, if it is 100% confirmed, they were only going to do one season on it. That could be why they did that. If they're like, hey, we're getting rid of their Berlanti-verse. We're getting rid of all those shows, so we're not going to promote it. We're just going to get it out there, be done with it, and move on to the next project. If that's their mindset, I think that's absolutely stupid.
I agree.
100%. Like, you got some out there. Maybe you've got lightning in the bottle here. Maybe you got something that'll take off. Because, again, that story, that show, I loved it as a comic book reader, but I also loved it as a fan of TV shows.
Yep.
They did a brilliant job with character development, growth of characters in just 5-ish episodes. 5 episodes, I'm already connected to a lot of those people, and I'm thinking off script. I'm thinking, season 2, 3, 4.
And want more. More. Yeah.
Well, again, that whole comment I had about Jim Gordon.
Yep.
I would love if there was a confirmed season 2. The final episode of season 1, a guy walks into the Gotham police station and goes, "Yeah, I'm a new transfer, Jim Gordon," and that's how the season ends. How awesome would that be? Where you're like, "Oh, next season we're getting Gordon, yes," And
I love that kind of stuff. It's he mentioned the Shazam movie and kind of that DC syndrome, and you have mentioned this on the show a lot, and I think I've been maybe in denial of the fact that this is happening, but I think there's a truth to it, because I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, for example, and I think they're phenomenal, top notch. I don't know how you watch the first 2 Shazam movies and don't make connections with the same kind of quality. You know what I mean? It's fun. I would recommend this to people that are superhero fans and not superhero fans, as far as somebody looking for a great popcorn flick. Guardians is one that I will take my wife to. My wife is going with me to see the 3rd one. She hasn't seen the first 2, but saw the holiday special, really enjoyed it, wants to see the first 2. They're fun. They're great characters. You don't need to have a lot of background in order to enjoy them. It's great ground floor movies to watch. You don't need to be sitting there the entire time going, and who's that guy? And who's that guy? Which I think is off-putting to people who aren't involved, who aren't comic fans. It's like, I want to just go and enjoy a movie and tell me a great story. Those movies do a great job of telling great stories in them, and they're fun. And there's something to be said about the fun factor. And I am linking Shazam to Guardians of the Galaxy for that too, because I think what's worked with those movies and why they have such great fan appeal is the fact that they're fun movies, but not slapstick, silly to the point where you don't have a great story. You've got a depth-filled story and characters that you care about that go through real problems and real adversity and have to come back from them. And because you care about these characters and you've had fun with them, it's a lot like, going back to what worked in the past, it's a lot like Chaplin flicks and Harold Lloyd, those shorts. What worked with those back in the day was the fact that they would go through bad, horrible things, but because of the fact that you cared so much about the character and you had an endearing attachment to them, that, when they had romances, you wanted to see the romance spurn into something. Grow into something, I should say. Bad choice of words. Grow into something. You wanted to see them get a one-up on the person that was oppressing them and those type of things. You want to see those things happen because you care about the characters. That works. It's a universal thing. You root for the underdogs, right? I think both of these movies feature characters who are underdogs. And that's why I think those series should be so connected. I don't know how you watch Guardians of the Galaxy and think they're so phenomenal, which they are, by the way. A huge fan of them. And then watch the Shazam movies and watch the second one and go, well, this was somehow lacking. Huh? Yeah. I'm sorry. You didn't watch the same film I did then, because that was a really fun movie. And very strange. The Rotten Tomatoes scores, I think, for the audience, and I haven't looked at them in a while, but at least while the reviews were coming in, the Rotten Tomatoes scores for the audience goers were much higher, which I think is more representative of the actual film than what the professional reviewers were. And I think I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but boy, it's kind of hard not to look at what's going on right now. And when you see some good DC movies coming out, like, are you kidding me? Like, that was a good movie. And it deserved to be acknowledged as a good movie. I'm not saying you have to put it out there and say that's an Academy Award winner. Guardians of the Galaxies weren't, like your best picture, put in there. Because those type of sci-fi movies are never going to be. At least, and I'm not saying that I'm an advocate for that, because I think some of those should be acknowledged in the running as some of the best movies that you've seen during the year. But in this case, you knew it wasn't going to be that. But, boy, it deserved a lot more notice as something that, take your family to this, you're going to have a really good time with this film. Blue Beetle.
Yes.
Oh, dude. I'm hopeful, very, very hopeful, that it will be reviewed and promoted for the movie that it is versus the way our society seems to approach things right now. We tend to pick out certain things, label something, and throw it away because of what we've labeled it as, instead of looking at it as a body of work. And I'm hoping, I'm tentatively confident that this is going to escape that. I hope it's the case, because, man, the trailer I saw has got me jonesing for this film. And I agree with him. I am so glad this is going to be a theatrical release, because I want to see this on the big screen, because it looks visually cool. And I don't want to see that at home. I want to see that, the special effects, that outfit, him as that character, the family story unfold. I want to see that with the big screen, the big sound, all of that. This movie looks like it's going to be a sleeper hit, and fingers crossed, I hope it winds up being that, because it certainly looks like it's going to deserve it.
I've had people ask me about this. I've had work people ask me about it.
Cool.
And the one guy is a comic book. He likes comic book movies. Mm-hmm. So he's like, hey, what's up with this Blue Beetle? And the way I described Beetle to him was, like, first off, I said, Blue Beetle's an amazing character.
Yeah.
I'm like, for you, the best way for you to think about it is Spider-Man meets Iron Man. He's a kid who's got this high-tech suit, and it's a lot of cool stuff, but it's still a kid in there, and he's like, oh, neat, so he's all in on that. And then the other person who's not so much a comic book person is like, hey, what is that about? I'm like this is Blue Beetle is a really family piece. This is a kid who's got the superhero suit, but it's not just about the superhero. It is about him and his family. This is a solid family story. Oh, that sounds interesting. So both of them are all in, and I explained it both ways, 2 different ways.
Yeah, and I think that's a great explanation for it. Iron Man meets Spider-Man, because I think that's where it succeeds. And the fun factor of Spider-Man, I think, in the DC universe, it adds something fresh to the DC universe, which is great. He also referenced the recently released Doom Patrol and the new Power Girl storyline. Are you caught up in Action Comics?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that soon, because I think we haven't really had a chance to delve into some of the expanded storytelling that's going on now in Action Comics.
Yes.
And touch back. I've got some ideas on some upcoming episodes that we're going to do, and we'll talk about it before we wrap up this episode. But we definitely have to jump back and talk about what's going on in both Action Comics and Superman. But we'll talk right before we wrap up this show about some ideas as far as what's coming up. But Doom Patrol, have you had a chance to read it yet?
No, I haven't yet.
That's another
I've
good
got it
one.
on my queue.
Yeah. It's another one of the 6 episodes. I'm doing it now. It's another one of those.
Flip-flopping.
It is. It's one of those 6-issue stories that are coming out, and I hope if these are successful that they lead to additional storytelling. Because DC's shown that I think Poison Ivy is a great example of the success of the series will lead to either an expansion of that series or a flat-out continuation of that series onto an ongoing. So I'm hoping that there's some opportunities for that with this particular delivery.
Now I can get out of here.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388 4434 or drnorge on Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. You prefer to contact us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website, and that's where you can find out information about the newest releases of our show. They go into Twitter and our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community, and that's how we do our Speeding Bullets news segments. That will be returning next week, and I want to thank everyone who participates over there. The About Us section of our show website is how you can find out how to connect with us on social media and gaming platforms. We love connecting with all of you, so please check that out. We update that regularly with any new changes, so be sure to check the dates on when we last put an update there. I am on the podcast Is It Jaws? And you can check out the link in our show notes. That is a movie review podcast. And we are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seguin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Flash, issue number 800, 40% off, only $2.99. Plus, they have the variant covers also at 40% off, with price ranging from $359 to $419. And speaking of variant covers, this is the swimsuit variant cover for the various titles in DC, and those are also 40% off. So thank you, DCBS.
Be sure to bookmark InStockTrades.com and check out their deals of the week. It's a great way to save some additional money on some books that you may have missed. We've got Batman Detective Comics hardcover volume 4, Riddle Me This. It's $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. The Top 10 Compendium trade paperback. Amazing book. $59.99 regularly, 50% off, only $29.99. If you're missing any of those books or any other books that you're looking for, that 50% off deal or those additional discounts that they get on their deals of the week are a great way to save additional money. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for not only supporting us, but a lot of other podcasts. They're a really great company. Our next episode, Jim, you and I are going to be back, and we're going to be touching base on some of the characters that we love, such as Superboy, Man of Tomorrow, and Adventures of Superman, John Kent, as we do a multi-episode look at the various Superman titles. We will see you next week.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Sean,
you're
Jim,
I don't know.
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.